Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to look into today is the disappearance of Bethany Decker, a 22-year-old woman that was actually pregnant at the time of her going missing. And this case involves not only Bethany's story, but another woman's story, and like an amazing story of survival for her. So yeah, let's just get into the case. Bethany Ann Decker. She was born on the 13th of May in 1989. Her mother's name was Kim, and she was the oldest of her children. She was actually born in Hawaii, but not long after they did move to Fredericksburg in Virginia, and that is where she ended up growing up. That is where she had a childhood. She was a great student and she did really well in school. She graduated with high grades. After that, she went to George Mason University, and she also worked as a waitress. She worked really hard, so by like daytime she was studying and things like that in uni, and then like by nighttime she was a waitress and earning money. Whilst in university, she was majoring in global economical change, and she really wanted to change the world for the better. Whilst in university, she met a man who she began to date. This man was called Emil Decker, and he worked as a National Guardsman for the army. Not long after they were seeing each other, she actually fell pregnant to him. The pair, adored each other, and then they decided that they were going to get married, and they did so in 2009. Just 6 months after that came along their beautiful son that they named Kai. Now, obviously Emil was in the army and he would often get deployed out, and he would be there for months at a time, and you've got Bethany, who is literally working full time, and in the meantime she's studying full time. She's studying in all the spare time she's got. And so Kai would actually go to stay with his grandmother. He basically lived there with Kim because, she wanted the best for her son, and she didn't have the time she wasn't a single parent, but Emil was away. He wasn't there to help out, and so she wanted the best for her little boy. And the best thing was for him to stay with his grandma, because she could be there and spend the time with him until Bethany got her life back on track and started to do the things that she wanted to do, and everything fell into place, and then obviously she could then take back the care of her son. Bethany was actually really well known as Beth, so if I refer to her as that, then obviously you know who it is. But yeah, before she went missing, she was very close off graduating, but while she was working in the Italian restaurant as a waitress, she met another man, and she began an affair with this man. He was called Ronald Rowland. Now, please obviously don't put any hate or anything horrible on Beth, because yes, okay, she was married and she had an affair. It doesn't deserve to be slated for or anything like that, and she did obviously end up going missing. So just bear that in mind as we're going through it. Please don't think horrible things of her just because she cheated. And I know cheating isn't very nice, but yeah. At this point in Bethany's life, she was run off her feet. She was feeling lonely as well because her husband was away. Her son was also away. Granted, it's what she wanted for him, but she felt lonely and she felt vulnerable at this time in her life. By the end of 2010, things with Emil wasn't really going very great. I believe he found some messages off Ronald on her phone, and she's telling him that it was nothing, but she carried on the relationship with him regardless. And then it ended up with Bethany wanting to end her and Emil's marriage. She ended up leaving. She ended up moving out of the house and moving into an apartment in Ashburn in Virginia, and again Kai was still with her mother Kim. So when she moved, it seems like Ronald moved in with her, and he became aggressive. He became abusive, possessive, controlling, all of those things. Just not a very nice person. And when she was out and things like that, he would tell her that she had to send him pictures of where she was and things like that. And it was just such a toxic relationship that she was in, and she just wanted to get out of it. Now, she was again very close to her mother, and so she told her all these things, and her mum told her that she needed to get out. She tried to get away from him, and she said that she tried to leave, but he wouldn't let her. He refused to leave himself, and he refused to let her leave as well. On one occasion, her mother Kim remembers that he actually threw her across the room and into the wall, even on one occasion threatening to cut her open with his car keys. So he was very, very aggressive, very, very violent man. And she really, really wanted to get out of this relationship and get away from him because she was frightened to death of him. In January of 2011, Emil comes back from deployment for a little while. I believe it was about a month. And, you know, they finally had a conversation. He didn't really know what was going on. Bethany finally told him that, you know, she had been seeing someone else. And it was something that he kind of already suspected, really. Regardless of that, I believe they had a holiday planned and they decided that they were still going to go on this holiday. So away they went. They had a wonderful time and they actually got back on the 28th of January. Their holiday was a week in Hawaii and they absolutely loved it. It was a nice break. It allowed Bethany to get away from everything, especially Ronald and his abuse. After this holiday, you know, things seemed to be going really good with Emil and Beth until Bethany one day just left and never came back. Ronald said that by all accounts Bethany came home on the 28th. The last time that he actually saw her was the next day, the next afternoon on the 29th. She actually rang her work to say that she would cover this shift in the afternoon. So the last time that work heard of her was that phone call, and the last time that Ronald saw her apparently was that afternoon, sort of as she left to go to work, and he didn't see her since. No one heard of or spoke to Bethany again. On the 2nd of February, Emil was due to go back to Afghanistan, and normally Bethany would be there. She would be there to wave him off or greet him or whatever. This time their friends were there, but she wasn't. He just put it down to the fact that they were having marriage troubles and, you know, it must have been a result of that. Nobody heard from Bethany though for like 3 weeks. I'd like to say that she was one of those people who would always keep in touch with her family, but life gets in the way, and life got in the way with her. She tried to keep in touch with them, but, you know, often she didn't, and so weeks would pass by without her contacting anyone. It was kind of normal for her. So when 3 weeks go by and her mother hasn't heard of her, you know, she don't really suspect anything because it's just normal. She was very busy doing her final semester at university, and because she was so close to graduating, she was working really, really hard to get a degree, along with her full-time job. So almost a month goes by without anyone really hearing from Bethany, and then Kim gets these strange phone calls from at least 4 different people, like Bethany's friends, that say they had received a message from Bethany's Facebook account that didn't sound like Bethany at all. They basically said that they had seen Bethany online and so messaged her because they'd not heard from her in a while, and that the messages that they got back did not sound like her at all. Like, the terminology and things and how people write things are so different, and it just wasn't how Bethany would normally write those things, so they were freaked out. Rightly so. They rang her mother. This was around the 19th of February at this point. Kim had also not realised that, she hadn't heard of her for quite a while, and so she actually rang her parents to go in and check on her because they actually lived closer to Bethany's house than she did. So they drive down, they go to check on her, and when they get to the house they find that her car is kind of parked like slanted. The car was really, really dusty, like it had not been used for ages, and it had a flat tire. They had actually been there the week before and her car did not look like that, so they thought something was weird. They knocked on her door, but they didn't get an answer, and obviously they told that to Kim, and then they eventually rang the police. The police began investigating straight away because no one had heard of her in 3 weeks. They searched her car, but that didn't lead anywhere. There was nothing in there that gave them any suspicions about what might have happened to her or where Bethany was. They also looked inside the apartment. Now, the apartment was pretty much empty apart from a bag of Bethany's clothes. They found out that she hadn't used her bank account in weeks, since the 29th of January. And she had also not used her phone either, since the 29th. They contacted her work, her university, and she had not been seen either. They got out the dogs, they searched for her, but they just found nothing. So, of course, police began looking into Emil. He was obviously at his post in Afghanistan at this point, but they spoke to him. When he got back, they interviewed him. He was very cooperative with the police. He took a polygraph, which I believe he passed, and he had a very strong alibi, which they confirmed, and so was ruled out as a suspect. The next on their list would have been Ronald. Ronald moved out of the apartment not long after Bethany went missing because he apparently couldn't afford the lease. Oh, because the lease ran out, sorry. And that is when he moved back with his mother in Centerview. The police rang him up, he spoke to them. He said that last time he saw Bethany was on the 29th of January, and he's not seen her since. He suggested that possibly he thought she had just moved back with her family or something like that. Now, I've told you how controlling Ronald was. And it's very, very strange the fact that he's saying that, because it's not something that he would allow. He didn't allow her to leave the relationship. He didn't leave the relationship himself, and so now he's claiming that, oh yeah, she's probably just moved back with her family. Very suspicious, right? As well, he always made her send pictures of where she was, and yet after the 29th, he's received nothing off her and he's not asked for anything off her. It's like he knew that she was gone or something. They looked into Ronald's past, and he had a little bit of a criminal history. He had been arrested for identity theft, for public disorder, for public intoxication, destruction of property, and there was also an incident of him smashing a woman into a window. So the police carried on investigating. They got warrants for to search Ronald's house. They seized several of his items, like his electronics, like his phone and things like that. But despite all that, the police couldn't find anything on it whatsoever. Nothing that would tell them what happened to Bethany or where she was. And it was about this time that Ronald stopped cooperating with the police. Now, Emil later got a divorce from Bethany, and apparently he will only speak to the police when a lawyer is present. And as I told you, at the time of Bethany going missing, she was actually pregnant. I believe around 3 months. And it wasn't known who the baby was, because obviously she was with 2 men at the time. And so they looked into that. They looked into whether any birth certificates or anything like that had occurred. And they gave out pictures to medical staff and things like that to see whether anyone recognised her, but no one did. They searched for years for information on Bethany, and they just found nothing. And her case just went cold. Then in 2014, Ronald got into a relationship with a woman called Vicky Willoughby. And as previous Ronald style, he began becoming very controlling, very aggressive, very just not a nice person towards her. And their relationship turned violent, like it did with Beth's. It was slowly escalating, and Vicky wanted out of the relationship, but again, Ronald didn't, and so wouldn't really let her. Then in November, it came to a head. Vicky was sat on her laptop and her phone, and Ronald goes over and he removes both of them off of her, and then he begins punching her in the face. Oh, he grabs her by the hair and begins punching her in the face, and she felt something crack. He had broke Vicky's neck. And as I said, he was aggressive, he was violent, and Vicky was scared of him and she wanted out, and so she had hidden a couple of guns in her house to protect herself against him because she really felt like he was going to kill her. So, with that in mind, she actually had 2 guns in the area at the time, one by a chair and one under a dog bed. She manages to get hold of the gun and she lets off 2 shots and shoots him twice. He then gets the gun from her and he shoots her 3 times, one of which was in the head. She lay on the floor and didn't move, and she thought she was going to die. Then Ronald luckily left the room, and Vicky saw her chance and she ran out of that door, and she didn't really want to bang on it because she thought that Ronald might hear. So she began furiously pressing the doorbell, and luckily somebody answered. They both survived. Vicky amazingly survived a shot to her head, but she did unfortunately lose one of her eyes as a result of that. And she wasn't ever charged with anything because they really did believe that it was, obviously, she was acting in self-defense, that he would have killed her if she didn't do anything and try and protect herself. Ronald also survived the incident too, and after he was discharged from hospital, he was detained in Moore County Jail. Vicky went on to say how Ronald had literally flat out told her that he was able to make people disappear. Just a controlling threat, but in regards to Beth, who did disappear, maybe it had something to do with that. Vicky actually heard about Beth, and she, from her ICU bed, she rang Kim. She rang her mother and spoke to her. and she told her how she believed that Ronald could have certainly killed her daughter, especially after the attack he did on her. Police also tried to speak to him about Bethany, but he just basically said, talk to my lawyer. In April of 2015, he was charged with the attempted murder of Vicky Willoughby, and he did plead not guilty, but in March of 2016, in a plea deal, did admit guilt to 2 felony assault charges. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison from that. And then on the 9th of November in 2020, an arrest warrant was released for Ronald over Bethany's abduction. Since then, he's also been charged with 2nd-degree murder, and up until now, Ronald is being held with no bond. I'm not entirely sure what they have on him that made them finally put out this arrest warrant, and he was literally just getting released from jail at that time, having served his sentence, and then he's arrested again. But as far as I know, her body hasn't ever been found. They never found any forensic evidence anywhere because they haven't found a body, and no body, no crime, right? I don't know what information they have that made them do this arrest, but you know, if he did this to Bethany, I'm glad they did, because he's already attempted to murder Vicky. He served his time for that, granted, which wasn't that long really for attempted murder, in my eyes at least, but what's to stop him doing it again? And personally, I believe that he was the one responsible for Bethany going missing. Again, that's my opinion. No proof of that as of yet, but they have put charges out for him now. So, you know, keep your eyes and ears open, and we will hopefully be updated on this case soon. This was obviously last year now, so who knows? So this case could be solved very soon, and for Bethany's family, I really, really hope that it is. They must have something on him because they've literally arrested him. So we just need to wait for that, and hopefully they will finally get justice for their daughter, who left behind a little boy and was pregnant at the time of her going missing. But yeah, that is the end of the case. If you have enjoyed the video, give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for similar content. To all my regulars, I appreciate you. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Bethany Decker. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.